So it's June of 2020, and my wife and I are expecting our second child, a beautiful daughter that we cannot wait to meet. So we go to the normal checkups, the appointments, stuff like that. When we get to this appointment, something not so great happens. So as they're doing, all the regular things, the doctor comes in and they see something on the screen as they're doing the ultrasound. It's not a smudge. It's not a trick of the light. It's some sort of spot on our unborn daughter's brain. And the doctor comes in and they compassionately as possible communicate the reality that there's several possibilities of what this spot could be. And one that has a higher likelihood than I like to say is that this spot is something called trisomy 18, which is a brain disorder that if our daughter were to have that, then her life would be very short and very painful. So they said they were going to run some tests to see if it's that or something else. They send us off and they say, we'll see you next week for another appointment. So as we drive home, my brain is just reeling. Anxious thoughts are just flowing over and over me. I don't know what to make of any of this situation. I'm trying to kind of keep myself composed for my wife. But when we get home, I say I just got to kind of step out for just a moment. And the anxiety is just like through the roof, right? It's to the highest level. And so I do what I guess I have to do. I talk to God, and I'm confused, and I'm a little angry, and I'm concerned, and I'm anxious, and I'm worried. And then I'm like, I need other people talking to God about this, not just me. So I reach out my phone, I pull it out, and I start texting all the people that I can, friends, family members, mentors, trusted people who I know are talking to God on a regular basis, but also they're going to talk to God about this now. Now, one of those people is a mentor, a dear friend of mine, a guy named Judd. Judd is a prayer warrior. I know he's going to seek the Lord's face on this, so I pull up my phone, I text him, I type JUD, and I start putting all of my thoughts vomited in my phone. My anxieties, my concerns, my fears, my worries, being as raw as possible. I said, please pray. So I haven't put my phone back in my pocket, and I get an alert. And I pull it out, and it's from someone named Judy. I'm like, Judy? Who's Judy? Well, Judy is a lady in our church, and I've met her maybe once before this, and I don't really know her from a stranger. And what I realize is that in my frantic, anxious panickiness, I had not texted Judd, Judy. I had texted Judy, Judy. And I am mortified because this is a very personal message that I'm sending to this random stranger. And I regret my decision immediately until I read her message. The message that she sends back saying that they have a daughter who is 30 years old. And when they went to the doctor, they just so happened to have had the same potential concern. Something found on the brain of their child. Didn't know what it was. And one of the possibilities was trisomy 18. And they prayed, and it just so happened that their daughter was born just fine. There was no concerns at all. She said she'd be praying the same thing for our daughter. And it's now 3 years later, and we have a beautiful, wonderful daughter who is healthy. And the cool thing is when we went back the next week to the appointment, the doctors didn't say that it had shrunk. They didn't say that it just wasn't trisomy 18. They said that the spot was gone. And I love that story, and I love the beautiful daughter that goes with it. But here's the thing. In the middle of that story, when I was actually experiencing it, I wasn't knowing all the cool things that were going to happen. I wasn't thinking, oh man, God's going to do something awesome in this, and I can't wait to hear it and see it. No, I was just anxious. my anxiety was crippling me. Man, if you're like me, then you probably can relate to that. And here's the thing, anxiety is something that we just don't talk a whole lot about in the church. I think the world outside the church talks on a regular basis about it, but we just don't. And I think for me, at least, I sometimes feel guilty about anxiety. We read all these awesome verses. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 through 7, that talks about don't worry about anything, but instead pray about everything. Or, we read 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, that says, well, you haven't been given a spirit of fear and timidity and anxiety. No, you've been given a spirit of strength. And we can sometimes feel guilty, like, well, I don't feel that way. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Am I sinful for feeling anxious? Am I just bad? Is there something wrong with me? Am I a bad Christian? And people in the Christian community aren't exactly the most helpful either. And so we feel like there's something wrong with us. And here's the thing. One of the things that we need to realize is that anxiety isn't a sin. It's a symptom. It's kind of like a fever. Right? When you have a fever, there's something in your body that's happening, and it's a symptom letting you know that there's something wrong. You need help. You need to work on that. Anxiety isn't a sin, it's a signal. It's kind of like in your car, right? Whenever something is off with your car, a warning light will go on, and it'll let you know, hey, you have X amount of miles before the gas runs out, or hey, you need to get this thing fixed. Anxiety operates in the same way. It's something that lets us know something is wrong. So today, we're going to talk about anxiety. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm going to put this at the front, big old asterisks. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a guru. I'm a guy. I'm a pastor. I work with students. But I'm also a guy who's, experienced some of this in my own life. I'm just like you. We all got our stuff. So the perspective I'm going to come at it from is from a spiritual perspective, for sure. But I'm also going to come at it from someone who's, been there and experienced myself. I'm also going to come at it from someone who experiences students on a regular basis who are going to be having this problem. So take all that for what you will, but just know that as we go into this, I hope that my journey is helpful to you, my perspective is helpful to you. So let's define anxiety together, all right? If you were to just Google, what is anxiety? You would get something similar to this. Anxiety is defined as a feeling of unease over an imminent event. It is a fear of the future. It's something we need to realize. Fear is natural. Fear is a natural part of our body, right? It's something that lets us know that something in our present isn't exactly good, and it needs to get worked out, right? Fear is natural. Let's say I'm walking through the forest, right? Walking through the woods, and I come into a clearing, and I see, boom, a grizzly bear. Now, fear is going to come over me, and I might also need a new pair of underwear. But I will have fear, and that will tell me I need to get the heck out of there, away from that bear. Anxiety is similar to fear, but it's just a little bit different. See, if fear is an awareness of what's present and a concern, anxiety is that same level of concern, but it's not about the present necessarily, it's about the future. It's about an unseen reality that we're having concerns about. So anxiety, think about this, we're going back into the woods. Or in the woods and we hear a noise. Now, we don't see what the noise maker is. We just hear a noise. And so our natural inclination is, boom, it's a lion, it's a tiger, it's a bear. Oh, my. Even though we don't see what it is, we have fear about it. And that causes us to dwell about it. I'm telling you, anxiety is at an epidemic level. In 2019 alone, a study showed that one in three people struggled with feeling anxious or anxiety. And that was 2019. That was before the world exploded. All right. Now I don't even know what the statistics would be, but they're definitely going to be heightened. anxiety as at a epidemic level. And so why has there been an uptick in anxiety? Well, people way smarter than me, what they've studied, they found maybe three contributors to why anxiety is upticked. One, it's an increase in the unknown. So we live in a Amazon Prime 2-day delivery, less than that, sometimes hour delivery, in a microwave, no commercial streaming mindset where whatever you want you can have at the ready. Well, this oftentimes leads to everything seeming to be known, controlled in our lives. Well, there's a lot of things that actually are out of our control. That creates a control coffin for us because we think that everything should operate just like how those things are, but they aren't. They're actually far out of our control. And so because of this, there's so much unknown, and that causes a lot of anxiety, a fear of the unseen, the unknown of the future. So the second thing is an increase in information. I mean, in no other time in our world have we had more access to information. You can know the habits of a woman in Indonesia and what she's eating for breakfast, and you can also know the war patterns, the crime rates, the brutality of a place that's hundreds of thousands of miles away from you. And so because of this, we can have the information of what's going on, but we can't necessarily do anything about it. And it causes us to be overstimulated and have just too much going on inside of our brain. Which leads to the third factor, which is an inability to act. Now, like I said, we have the ability to read articles and have news and all these things from all around the world in just a second. And this causes us to have a digital ear to learn about things, but not a physical arm to do anything about it. And this can cause anxiety. Now, here's what's really interesting. So when we experience anxiety, the physiological effects that happen and why they happen are actually very similar to a habit that we have. So habit formation really requires three things. So it requires some sort of trigger, some sort of reason for you to want that habit. Then it requires the behavior, the thing that you do because of the trigger, and then it requires the result. So think about it like this. If I want to be a healthier person, right, what am I going to do? I'm going to exercise or eat right. That's going to lead to the result of me being a healthy person. Maybe I lose weight. Maybe, whatever numbers inside of me go down, or up, whatever I want them to be. That's going to be the result. So the trigger is I want to be a healthier person. The behavior, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to sleep well, whatever. And then the results are the things that I want. Or let's say that, I want to get out of debt, okay? I want to be a person who's debt-free, so I'm going to start saving and spending less. Boom, I have all of these results. So anxiety is a similar habit where there's some sort of a trigger. There's some sort of a reason why we have this thing. Then there's the behavior, which is anxiety, and it leads to a whole bunch of results, right? See, we experience some sort of exterior force that causes an inner change and turmoil within us, and that leads to our results, which is anxiety. Now, here's the problem. It's not necessarily the anxiety itself. It's what we do with our anxiety. Because oftentimes when we experience anxiety, we have that outside exterior force, that trigger to exhibit a behavior. The behavior that we have is often the destructive behavior, okay? So we'll do things like we distract ourselves with social media or hours of binge watching and streaming, okay? Maybe we eat way too much food. We really need that dopamine hit. So we're going to hit up a bunch of food. Maybe we watch pornography. Maybe we start drinking, or we start shopping, or we start doing drugs, or we start having sex. Whatever it is, all these things we do because the exterior force has caused an interior thing within us, and we need to react to that to soothe our inner issue. And here's the problem. When we do this, it doesn't replace the habit. It just masks the habit. It doesn't actually get results. It just makes us feel like we're doing something, right? It makes us feel like we're actually acting. And the problem is this: it would be like if you wanted to get healthy. All right, you look in the mirror and you say, "Whoa, man, I'm not as healthy as I could be." And rather than doing the things, eating right, sleeping right, exercising, you say, "We're just going to get rid of all the mirrors." You know what? If I don't see it, I don't think about it. It's not a thing. It's object permanence kind of a thing. Well, that's what we do with anxiety, is rather than getting to the root cause and figuring out what to do about it, we just mask it and cover it, and we feel like we've done something about it. So what we're going to do is we need to get to the root cause. Now, Second Chronicles in the Bible tells us the story of King Jehoshaphat, which is an incredible story. I love King Jehoshaphat. He's an incredible person, and he wrestles with anxiety at a really key moment. So in Second Chronicles chapter 20, we see him being sieged on all sides by all these different forces. There's the Ammonites, there's the Moabites, there's the Munites, and that's just what happens, right, in life, where man, we can probably handle one thing, maybe two, but man, three or more things just kind of stack, and the crap in life just stacks until it's right beneath your nose, and that's all you're smelling. We struggle with financial things. Okay, we can handle that. We can start saving money, start budgeting. Boom. And then a family member's sick. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that's all right. We'll just make sure we make some intentional time to visit them, to care for them. And then boom. What happens? We lose our job. Oh man, I'm through the roof. I can't handle any of this. So what we see in this moment, right, is that Jehoshaphat is in similar situations to us. He's overwhelmed with all these things. But here's what he does. He does three things in the midst of this anxiety. First, he prays. Then he pauses, and then he praises. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole story. I encourage you, 2 Chronicles chapter 20. It's an incredible story. You really need to dig into it to enjoy all this. But we're going to do the same things that he did when we experience anxiety. It's something I do, and I'm not saying that I got it figured out, but it's certainly helpful to me. So let's start with the first thing about prayer. Now, we oftentimes think like, oh, okay, yep, for sure. When bad things happen, that's the spiritual thing to do. You just pray. And it's like, yeah, it is. There's a reason why it's tried and true, you know? So it does a couple things. One, it changes things spiritually for us. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 through 7. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you." Here's what prayer does. It takes the burden off of us and it places it on God. It takes it off of our shoulders and it puts it on his heart. Why? Because he cares for you. Takes it off us and it puts it on him. And this perspective is so good because it admits that we can't, God can. It admits that we don't have it all together, but God does. Prayer is the difference between the best you can do and the best God can do. And he can do way more than we can do. So that's what I found in my moments of stress, that, man, I'm struggling. I need to pray to God. But even deeper than that, I found that when I'm most stressed, it's because I'm thinking it's my job to fix everything. I get Superman syndrome, all right, where I'm going to fly around the world, I'm going to solve everybody's problems, and then I'm going to do it with a smile and a little spit curl. I'm going to be doing great. And that caused me a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. But my moments of greatest peace, they don't come from me having all the answers. It's me going to God for the answers. And that's a radically better way to do it, I've found. But here's the thing. Prayer doesn't just change things spiritually. They change things physically, physiology-wise for us too. Here's the cool thing. In our brains, when we partner prayer with intentional breathing, and I'm going to tell you, the simplest thing, breath. God gifts it to us. Breathing does an amazing thing. That's why almost every single anxiety thing, the first thing they tell you first to do is just breathe. So prayer partnered with intentional breathing, what it does is it rushes blood to our prefrontal cortex. That's the decision-making part of your brain. If you read this newsletter this past month, then you're going to learn about the prefrontal cortex and its role and responsibility and willpower. But it gets it to there, and it helps you make better decisions, gives you clarity. Prayer focuses on someone else doing it, not just you, and it helps you make better decisions. So that's the first thing, prayer. Then we're going to pause. So Joshaphat, in his story, he had all the people of Judah pause. And that's not necessarily the best battle strategy human-wise, right? I mean, we often think, well, we need to act, we need to do, man, we need to get stuff done. But over and over in the scriptures, God says, hey, listen, that's awesome what you're doing, but it's actually not going to do anything. Why don't you just pause and see what I do in this situation? And when we focus on what God will do rather than what we should do, He'll reveal what we can do. It's a powerful, powerful exercise. So rather than frantically going around trying to fix all the things, rather than worrying, trying to disasterize and think what the possibilities of this thing could be, we need to pause. And we need to let God take the reins and take control. In fact, in my own life, I found that this time of pausing allows me to have a lot of good reflection time. Not reflection on what if. Those are dangerous letters and dangerous words when it comes to anxiety. And worry in the what if makes us feel like we're doing something, but it's not actually true. It's a false sense of productivity. But when we reflect, man, that can help us with this situation. It kind of makes us like a peregrine falcon. So peregrine falcons, they are the most incredible animal. They're so awesome. In fact, they're actually the fastest animal. So a peregrine falcon, when it's flying and it sees a critter that it wants to eat, it'll go into what's called a stoop, which is a 240 mile per hour downward slope. It's incredible. The reason it's able to go that fast is because its body is designed by, I believe, God, to be fast, to cut through the air, and to allow gravity to pull it down in the fastest way possible. But the second reason is it stops flying and starts diving. It allows gravity, the thing that it fights against to fly, it allows it to pull it to the ground and to be productive. So we need to do the same thing in our pausing and our reflecting time. We need to ask God to reveal to us in our reflections what's going on within us. Right? Search me, O Lord, and reveal anything that does not glorify you. In these moments, it's a super helpful thing that God will reveal to us and reflect maybe what's going on in here. In his book, Unwinding Anxiety, the new science shows how to break the cycles of worry and fear to heal the mind, which is a mouthful. Author Dr. Judson Brewer talks about how we can break the habit of anxiety that we talked about earlier, that anxiety loop. So he talks about leaning in to the anxiety, which seems counterintuitive, but you lean into the anxiety and ask some really hard questions. So he kind of does three folds with this. So breaking the habit is done in three parts. So the first one is establish what the trigger is. Or ask, why am I feeling this way? Okay, so if I'm in a situation where I'm at a party and I'm doing fine beforehand, but then as soon as someone starts talking to me, I get anxious. Why am I anxious? I'm anxious because this person is talking with me. Okay, why am I anxious about that? Well, maybe because I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to mess us up. I don't want someone to think less of me or whatever. Okay, that's the why. I've established the trigger. Okay? With that in mind, we need to know not just why, because why can sometimes take us down a rabbit hole. So we need to be very careful about why. But then we need to ask, okay, what am I doing about this too? Because sometimes, right, the trigger leads to our behavior. And our behavior can lead to some very unhealthy things. So we're at the party. We experience social anxiety. Man, I don't want to talk to this person. So I'm going to go sit in the corner and I'm just going to eat chips and play on my phone. That's not going to be super helpful for us. We need to ask, what am I doing? Well, what am I doing about this? Am I overcoming that and having a strategic conversation to build maybe a new friendship, a new relationship? Or am I distracting myself and filling myself with nice, greasy dopamine? Okay, we need to ask what we're doing, why it happened, and is the thing that we're doing because of why it happened, is it good for me? Okay, so the second thing we need to do is update and disenchant the anxiety reward system, because what happens is you experience anxiety, you do a thing to make yourself feel better. You binge, you eat a bunch of food, you escape, you play the worry game, you cycle all kinds of news and stuff like that to make yourself feel better. In the moment, yeah, you get a little bit of a dopamine rush, and that's a reward system. So then you're rewarding yourself for anxiety. But instead, what we need to do is we need to disenchant the anxiety loop, disenchant that reward system. So one of the best ways is just reflect on what happened last time. Okay? Last time you were really nervous and concerned about that test and you procrastinated, what happened? You failed the test, or you had to stay up all night studying and you were exhausted the next day. Remember that, dwell in it, sit in it, and say, hey, I don't want that again. Maybe I should try and just study this time. Or, gosh, you were so nervous after that interaction with that person that, man, you just went away and you just like ate and ate and ate until you were sick. Ugh. You don't want to do that again? No. Instead, maybe you have one small interaction with that person. Make yourself feel better by rewarding yourself, saying, you know what? I did a good job. I did have that conversation. Rather than, man, whenever I feel stressed from work and anxious about tomorrow thing, rather than going to pornography and making ourselves feel good with a temporary enjoyment, say, what can I reflect on that I've done well today? Yeah, let's worry about maybe what I could do tomorrow, but then I'm just going to go to bed because you know what? I need rest after a hard day's work. Okay. We need to sit and reflect in what was and realize that's not going to be good for us in the future. We need to disenchant that present desire for us to reward ourselves in a negative way, because when we focus on the past, it can help us with the future and the present. Okay, so the third thing we're doing is provide a bigger, better reward. Okay, I talked about this a little bit in the last one. The idea of, how can we get a better long-term good for us than a short-term good? And one of the ways that we can do this is, rather than pursuing the running from the anxiety, we can pursue curiosity. And that actually kind of helps dissolve the anxiety. So this is a cool thing that you can do. When you're in the midst of these anxious moments, one of the coolest things you can do is you can just ask, what am I feeling right now? I mean, literally break down the physical nature of it. What am I feeling in my hands right now? My hands are sweaty. Man, why are my hands sweaty? Huh. That's kind of strange. Weird. What am I feeling in my chest? My chest is beating right now. Huh. Okay. And it slows down. What's going on in my brain? What am I thinking right now? Treat it like a curiosity, like you're an explorer in your brain trying to discover a new world. And when you do that, it disenchants it and it makes it less scary. So give yourself a better thing, curiosity, over running from it. And that's what that book, that's what that doctor talks about. And I think when I've had that in my own life or with students, it's been a very helpful thing. Here's one more pro tip. It's just super fun. We oftentimes do this when we're trying to figure out. We squint. We ask, what am I seeing? Well, actually, the best thing to do whenever you're trying to get is open your eyes. Really bug eye about, And the crazy thing is it opens our awareness. And it helps us to see what's around us. And when we can see what's around us, it actually helps us with things. Literally, it changes chemical compounds in your brain about what's going on. It helps you have better perception, but also gives peace of mind because you actually have a better understanding of what's going on. No joke, opening your eyes when you're anxious very wide can help get to better perspective and even change brain chemistry. So there you go. That's a fun one. Okay, so once you've discovered all that, gone through those small actionable steps and stuff like that, do small things to kind of help yourself get out of it. I'm telling you, go on a walk. Actually, get up and do something. Don't just sit, don't just dwell. Go on a walk. Do something constructive, not destructive. So I challenge you in this moment, don't get on your phone. Don't get in front of a screen. Go out and actually actively do something. What that's going to do is going to produce more blood pumping into your body, which is going to go to your brain. It's going to help with those chemical compounds being normalized. So get out, go on a walk. If you love, go on a run. Go on a run. Do something exercise related. Go and just hang out with some friends. Do something rewarding that's going to be good for you. Deep breathing. I can't tell you how much it helps. Prayer. Prayer is doing something. Sometimes we think, well, prayer is the last resort. That's the thing that we need to do last. No, prayer should be the first thing because it's the most important thing you can do. But also, I yet again, I can't say it enough. Put away the phone. That can be a huge distraction and not in a good way. Okay, so we talked about prayer. We talked about pausing. Let's finish the last one out with praise. So in the story, verse 21 of chapter 20 tells us that Jehoshaphat, he finished the anxiety battle with praise. It says, after consulting the people, Jehoshaphat appointed men to sing to the Lord and to praise him for the splendor of his holiness as they went out at the head of the army. They were saying this, giving thanks to the Lord for his faithful love endures forever. The crazy thing is, rather than sending out dudes who looked like Chris Hemsworth and John Cena and Dwayne The Rock Johnson to go in front of the army, what does Joshua do? He sends out the choir. It's because it gets his mind focused on God first. Now, the cool thing about praise, which is another way of saying that is gratitude, showing gratitude to God for what he's done, it doesn't just change our heart perspective, it changes our brain chemistry. No joke. Research has found that consciously practicing gratitude can reduce feelings of stress and anxiety. In fact, studies have found that one thought of gratitude produces an immediate 10% of happiness in us and a 35% reduction in the depressive symptoms. These effects, they disappear after 3 to 6 months, which is crazy that it lasts that long, which is why we need to have a consistent habit of gratitude in our lives. So my question is, how consistently are you giving gratitude to God? How consistently are you giving praise to God for who he is and what he has done? And when you do that on a regular basis, it combats our natural negativity bias. Now, I know we've talked about this on this podcast before, but our brains have a negativity bias, which means their natural inclination, when we're finding ourselves in a situation, we're naturally going to focus on the negative. However, we can combat that. It takes about 3 to 1. That's about the ratio that we talked about, 3 to 1. 3 positives per 1 negative interaction. But when we do that, we can overcome the negativity bias, which is why we need to make a regular habit of making gratitude a part of our lives. When we do, we can make anxiety less. Now, here's the thing. The last thing I want to put on here, kind of a capper for this conversation. Jehoshaphat was very wise in many ways, but one of the greatest ones is he didn't fight this battle alone. When he had anxiety, he got all the people together. They fasted, they waited, they prayed, they went to God. He wasn't alone. And my challenge to you, please hear me on this. You are not alone. Don't fight this battle alone. You need good people in your life, a good loving community of family, of friends, of spouses, of professionals, of people who are going to come around you and partner with you. Now, that might mean you have to go see somebody who is going to help you. a cognitive behavioral therapist, someone who is going to be a mentor, a Christian counselor, a pastor, someone who's going to come and help you kind of untangle some of these things you're feeling. And also, sometimes you're going to find there's just a chemical imbalance in your brain, and you might need some extra help to be able to get that squared away. In the end, whatever it is, you need help. You do not need to fight this battle alone. And I'll tell you, if you do fight it alone, you won't succeed. And you'll find yourself in worse and worse situations. So, I want to say first off, thank you. I like you. I love you. I'm so happy to have you in my life. I look forward to these conversations every single month. And I hope you do too. Thank you for welcoming us into your heart and your lives and your ears. I thank you so much for that. It means so much to be able to get to do this, to partner with you, to help you be that person that God wants you to be, to get that 1% better every single day, to grow you into the person He wants you to be. So I hope it's been a good month for you. I hope this has been a great conversation for you. I appreciate so much you being a part of this team. I want to say a big thank you to Rachel for her putting this together, for her editing and sending out those awesome newsletters. Please, if you enjoyed this, if you thought there was any benefit at all, send that to someone else. Expand our community of people so that we can help other people to grow, to get a little bit more like the person that God wants them to be. And here's my challenge to you. Keep growing. Keep getting closer every single day to that person God wants you to be. And when you do, you won't just change your life, but you change the lives of those around you. So thank you. Much love from me, and to your success.
Grow You is a next-gen affiliation with Park Chapel Christian Church in Greenfield, Indiana. Grow You podcast is hosted by Kiefer Honeycutt. Music composed by Marble Space. Like and subscribe on YouTube and/or Apple and Spotify podcasts.